Rev up your engines!
Today I'm going to show you how this little $29 part can fix your car. Cars have gotten more and more complex as time goes on. Now, this is called a MAP sensor, manifold absolute pressure. It measures the difference between the outside barometric pressure and the vacuum pressure in the engine. The computer takes that information to make it run right. Now, back in the day, some cars only had a MAP sensor. My 94 Celica only has a MAP sensor on it. That's it. Now, the more modern system is a MAF sensor, mass airflow sensor. It measures the air flowing in, and some cars have both sensors. What happens to these are they eventually break and they start leaking. This is a brand new one, and when you suck on it, it's a perfect vacuum. There's no problem with it. You can test it with a vacuum pump if you want, but sucking on it is good enough. Now we'll go inside. We can get data on these computers of the sensors very easily. We'll just plug it in, idiot light on. You don't start the garbage, turn the idiot light on, and the machine will start to analyze. In this case, it's got a P2173, which is a high airflow vacuum leak detector. If there aren't any obvious leaks, spray fluid around, it doesn't race up. There's nothing that's obviously leaking. But Chrysler products are notorious for the MAP sensors going bad. They break down internally. So we're gonna look at data. We will go to live data. See, it's leaking because it keeps changing. It's 12, now it's 10 again, then it goes 12, it moves all over. That system is leaking. It can make the car go bananas because it tells the computer the wrong amount of fuel to give the vehicle. Generally, it'll make them run too lean and then they'll hesitate and they won't go fast. All right, where's it hiding? Well, this is a pretty easy car to work. We got the sensor here. And there it is right there. We just got to unbolt that. I guess I'm weaker than I thought I was. Well, old age is catching up on me. Back to the ratchet and socket. It ought to come out now. And finally it came out. There she blows. And you just wiggle it and pull it out. There it is. Now after all these years, these connectors are often almost impossible to get apart without breaking something. So we'll see what happens here. They're stinkers. You got to push it, pull. There, we got it out of the way. Now it should certainly come apart. It still doesn't want to come apart. Ha! It's got a mind of its own. All those years sitting on top of these manifolds, pretty much melted together. It doesn't want to come out. Ta-da! Success! Let's make sure it snaps on. Snapped right on. This is just a lock. You can leave it off if you want, but what the heck. It was there, I'll put it back on. And make sure it's got a new gasket. It came with a new gasket. And as nutty as it sounds, bit on it a little, it'll go in the hole better and seal. And we bolt it back in and just get it on snug so it won't pop out of its hole. You don't want to break the plastic. The plastic is relatively brittle. Now I can feel it touching. And then maybe another quarter of a turn. Now it's in there nice and tight. Now this is an old Chrysler 4-cylinder. It's got the permanent catalytic system below threshold. The catalytic converter's probably worn out. I mean, it does have 150,000 miles on it. But we'll go back to checking the live data now. And now we see it's staying stable at 14. It's not bouncing around like it was before, and it's actually a higher reading because the old one was leaking. And when it leaks, of course, the pressure will go down because it's got a leak on it. Now it's stable and it's a higher reading, which is what you want. That leak is gone. Now, there's only one problem with this vehicle. It's a Chrysler. Here's the computer. This is the ECM. Where is it? Right next to the engine, where it's hot as can be. Why is it there? Check out my Toyota Matrix. Do you see a computer there? No. You know why? Because it's hiding inside the car, where it's much better climate. It's heated in the winter, air conditioned in the summer. Why would Toyota put them in farther away where they're safe instead of under the hood? But Chrysler put them under the hood next to the hot engine. Well, there's one answer. It's called cheapness. Toyota has to have wires that go the whole way from the inside around. It costs more money to make longer wires. In this case, here's the stinking wires that go to the sensors right here. They're short, so they're cheaper to make. That's the only reason they put them there. It's just a cheaper way to make them. Stupid, I know, but they're thinking about cutting corners, saving nickels and dimes. That's one reason. I always warn people with older Chrysler products. This thing's got like 150,000 miles. The electronics start to fail then. And a lot of it is computer related. In this case, it was a sensor, but the sensor feeds the computer. The computer's under the hood where all that heat is. The circuit boards eventually warp, and when you go through a bunch of rain, water gets splashed up there where you're driving down the road. Eventually, it'll intrude on the wiring harness. Even though they're sort of sealed, water gets in them and they get green corrosion on. I can see there's a little green corrosion on the inside of this one. So when they age, they'll do all kinds of squirrely things that make no sense because the electronic systems are starting to self-destruct, all because the computer's hidden under the hood instead of inside the car where it's safer from the elements. Let's face it, if you've got a laptop, are you going to leave it out in the sun next to your pool? No. I learned my lesson that I was using my phone next to the pool with the wireless speaker. All of a sudden the music stopped. The phone got too hot, the wireless speaker was black, it got too hot and it stopped working. And it's just sitting in the sun. It gets a lot hotter under there. Sometimes it'll get 300-400 degrees under there. The exhaust manifolds under there get super hot. Stupid idea to make them that way, but that's what they do. And that's one reason you don't want to keep these Chryslers too long. The modern ones. The old ones didn't have computers, didn't really matter. But the new ones have so many computers on them, when they start to go out, they start to drive you nuts because it's like anything else. If the computer has a problem, since it's tied into everything, it'll either give you incorrect codes where it'll say one thing is wrong when it's something else because the circuit board's just short off, or it won't give you a code about what's actually wrong. Customers bring me them that I plug in a machine and it'll have like 10 codes. And right off the bat I say, it's almost impossible for your car to have 10 separate systems break down at the same time. That's almost always either the wiring to the computer or the computer itself. That makes analysis just insane because you have to throw it all out the window. When you get all these different codes, you have no idea how they could all be going out at the same time, and it's usually the computer circuits go bad and then they start feeding back on each other. For example, that sensor goes bad. So wrong data is getting to the computer. So what does the computer do? If there's a big enough vacuum leak, it's going to make the engine add fuel. But it doesn't really need added fuel. The computer thinks it does because the sensor's bad. So when it adds fuel, then other parts of the computer system, the oxygen sensor, see, oh, now there's too much fuel. It's running too rich. I've seen cars, and this one actually is included in it. This thing was subtracting fuel at high speeds and adding fuel at low speeds, which you might think doesn't make any sense, but actually it does because the computer has to always be compensating, and if it compensates too much, then it's got to go to the opposite side, and if one of the sensors that gives it information is wrong, then forget it. There could be 1,000 different analytical scenarios of what could possibly happen. Too many possibilities. Realize that the computers have only binary logic. They only know zeros and ones. They know them really fast. They can do zeros and ones really fast. But if they go in a zero instead of a one, they go down the wrong path. Then all kinds of crazy crap goes on. That's why, even with your home computer, if it goes nuts, what's the first thing they tell you to do? Unplug it for 5 minutes, plug it back in and reset it. And sometimes it starts working again. Well, you don't want a car like that, but in the case of this one, when it has been acting up, that's exactly what it does. It acts up, you shut it off and then turn it back on and it stops acting up. That's why you don't want to have these Chryslers when they're old. There's just so much crap that can go on. And the analytics is just so complex when computer systems start breaking down. Just the way that it goes. There's no way out of that. And of course, the other main problem is basically nobody really knows how to rebuild these computers. And as they age, the manufacturers don't have to manufacture the computers. There's no law that says they have to manufacture them for certain years. They have to only have parts available while the cars are under warranty. If it's got a 3-year warranty, 3 years. After that, they don't have to make any more. So when these things get old, not only hard to figure out, but a lot of times you can't get new parts for them. So then manufacturer them basically don't know what they're doing. I've had so many people get remanufactured computers that didn't work. And from my experience, well over 50% of them are just junkyard computers that they've taken out, spray painted them black or silver, and said they were remanufactured and sell them to somebody. I had that happen to me ages ago in Houston, and I just gave up with buying them from junkyards because you have no idea if they're good or not. And then they'll say, oh, well, it was good. You wrecked it. We're not going to give you your money back. They don't know. They're just pulling them out of junkyards and spray painting them. Here, at least, you found out how you can analyze if your math sensor's going out. Got to have a nice stable reading. Can't be fluctuating all over the place. And you also learned why not to buy a Chrysler product in the first place if you're buying old. Now, this thing's got 150,000 miles. And it's worked okay for those mileage. So if you would have bought this new, it wouldn't be that bad of a deal. But you buy one like this with 150,000 miles, playing with dynamite. You never know when the stupid thing's gonna blow up. I mean, I wouldn't get in this thing and try to drive to California. I wouldn't trust the stupid thing. If it was a Toyota, I wouldn't care. I'd get in it and drive. But this, pretty much on the end of its lifespan, you don't want to put too much money into one of these cars. And in this case, the one thing's fixed, not leaking vacuum anymore, great, but I can guarantee you it's going to have all kinds of other problems in the future. So probably a good time to get rid of a car like this now and not throw a bunch of money into it because they aren't built or designed correctly. If you're looking at one of these with high mileage, my advice is move on to a better vehicle. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.